Obviously, Game 2 went much better than Game 1 since the Cavs handedly beat New York 107-90. Was Garland the biggest reason the Cavs beat the Knicks in Game 2?
I think Darius Garland was a big reason why the Cavs were able to get the win in this instance, but I actually think it was the way that they implemented their defense. I thought that the team collectively just defended better. They were really good in Game 1, but they were even better in Game 2 because they were throwing blitzes and double teams and traps at Brunson, and they really kind of put their stamp on this game in Game 2. And we talked about that in our previous episode where New York seemed to dictate how everything was going in Game 1, and in Game 2, the Knicks were just flummoxed by the Cavs, and the Cavs were able to get steals. They were finally able to get some rebounds and prevent the offensive rebounds, the second chance points. And I actually think a lot of that started on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, what a difference between those two games. And if you tune into our content, you know I went to the first game. I wish I had listened to my inner voice. I really expected that we'd struggle in Game 1, so I wish I had spent my hard-earned money on Game 2. But anyway, it's very cool that we came out with the kind of response that we did. In a lot of ways, I didn't expect it because of the struggles that we had in Game 1. I thought it might take a few more games to get our legs back under us, especially someone like Karis LeVert. He had a phenomenal game. He was able to come in and kind of do what we were seeing at the end of the year, at the end of the season, to make us more confident that we might actually have him coming off the bench consistently scoring for us for once. You know, back to what you talked about, the defense was huge because the Cavaliers, you know, they're the number one defense in the league. The fact that they came in and finally reminded the Knicks that that's true, I was over the moon. On top of the fact that they finally, on the offensive side of the ball, because of the defense, were able to get a little bit of a run going. And that led to a nice 34-17 push in the second quarter going into the half, and they never looked back. So Game 2 was what I think you and I are hoping the Cavaliers can produce most nights, and if so, we'll be heading to the Eastern Conference Finals possibly. I mean, that's the kind of team and talent that we're looking at here.
Yeah, and it's the type of team that has this chemistry together, not only the players on the floor, but the coaching staff. We saw JB not have Rubio go out there, not have Wade go out there. Instead, he had, as you mentioned, he trusted LeVert, and they implemented LeVert in some different ways. And then they brought out Danny Green. And I think that shows that through and through this roster, they all get along. They all have clearly a leader in Donovan. But Donovan is a leader on this team in maybe kind of the most gracious way you can think of as a star, talented athlete, where this was a game where he did not put up giant points. He didn't put up multiple buckets. He had 13 awesome assists and was sometimes the second or third option on the offensive side of the ball. And yet you still felt his presence. You still felt that the Knicks were concerned about him every possession. And it was really a testament as to what you mentioned, that what this Cavs team can be. They are ahead of schedule in as far as their talent and where they're at. But I think a lot of that is what they're trusting themselves in. And that's probably why we were so frustrated with Game 1, is the trusting component of the coaching staff and the players wasn't meshing well at all in Game 1. So that's why we sounded so perturbed in Game 1, or in the Game 1 reaction.
Yeah. And the fact that, you know, this amazing backcourt that we have in the Cavaliers, it didn't show up. And you can't fault Donovan Mitchell. And Garland was just not what we expect for Game 1. And he was more than what we expect for Game 2. I mean, if he could do that every night, then he'd be flirting with MVP of the league. So you're not going to expect that from the guy. But just the fact that he came out as tenacious as he was, as aggressive as he was, it's a lot of what you talked about in the previous episode that we put out, episode 71, where you mentioned, this team cannot be successful without Garland going out there and believing in himself. And that's something that we thankfully got to see, that he came out there and trusted his shot from the moment the jump started. And they like I said, they played so dominantly that once they gained the lead, they never looked back. And statistically, it's the kind of night that we got a little spoiled witnessing from the Cavaliers throughout the year. They could never really get any consistency at it, though, and that's what they're going to need to now dig deep to find, because every game now matters more than ever before, and the fact that they came out in Game 2 and retook home court back, or at least tried, now they've got to steal one in New York, it's just a great sign to see them coming out and playing the type of way that we know that they can. And like you said, they're ahead of schedule, which is phenomenal, but a lot of that is because of the play of the two guards that we have, the fact that they both took it to 11 this year, and that's what we got to see in Game 2. Some more of that.
So Adam and I have been doing this podcast for, as we've mentioned, around 70 episodes, a couple of years now. Something we never dreamed we'd get to do was be a guest on another podcast for the Cavs in any capacity. We are fans of the team, but we didn't think that we'd ever get that chance, and luckily we did. We really wanted to say thanks to Jackson Flickinger and Tony Pesta of the Junkyard Pod. You should check them out because they're really smart, they're really fun, and they have some really awesome Jetty Osmond takes. So it was great to be on their episode, and just wanted to say check them out.
Yeah, it's been a goal of ours to be on a pod and have the opportunity to share the love of Cavaliers with the large community that's out there that talks Cavs basketball. So it was a really cool opportunity to start that with Tony and Jackson. Jackson's been on our podcast, as we've mentioned, and we hope to now have Tony on and do more of a partnership with them in the future. So it was a lot of fun, and we hope that you enjoy the episode. Go over and check them out.
Thank you for listening to the Cavaliers Basketball Club podcast. Let's go Cavs!